Hello dear channel, welcome to this almighty jewelry 3D gems settings asset. There are many aspects of the asset that I will have to show and explain. Today I'm going to make a quick overview and some quick customization examples for this almighty asset. Not only for professional jewelers, but also for people who need a tool to make jewelry design and jewelry creation a lot easier, a lot faster, and to be customized for all your most demanding preferences and needs for jewelry rendering and jewelry manufacturing, and who are not necessarily professional jewelers. So this asset is going to allow you to access more than 100 gemstone settings made for 3D printing and rendering. The settings are by gemstone cut name, Asher, the baguette, the cushion, the emerald, the heart, the marquise, the oval, the pier, the round, the square, and the trillion shape. Also in the baguette, we have the straight rectangular baguette and the tapper or trapeze baguette cut. So in total, we have 12 shapes, the 12 most classic and most necessary cuts when you are a professional jeweler or want to create and design jewelry. So obviously the asset is very well organized. When using the asset, what we're going to do is we're going to append the collections to our projects instead of opening the asset. And it's not necessary to open the asset. All the gemstones cut names are here by alphabetical order, and every shape has collections for the variants of the settings. So the Asher cabochon settings has the 1000 grands. You can hide it obviously here, and every setting has its profile shape right next to it or very close to it, because obviously we want to customize. So here by example, I can change the height, all the shape for my preferences. Also, don't forget that you can turn on the transparency with Alt Z, and you will see the position of the gemstone and the thickness of your setting to make a very precise adjustment of the setting, be it for rendering or manufacturing. I can change and adapt my setting very quickly, very easily. And you can obviously hide the gemstone. The setting is ready to be exported as an object file or an STL file, depending what you need. STL for 3D printing, object for rendering, and other projects. So first, we have the cabochon setting, two variants, the simple bezel and the double bezel. You can always add or remove the 1000 grands. Then we have the settings for the faceted Asher gemstone. There's a lot of difference between the cabochon cut and the faceted cut. So this is the faceted Asher and the specific settings for the faceted gemstone. So we're also going to have bezels, but for the faceted version of the gemstone. And that's going to be the same for all the shapes and cut of the gemstone. And here we're going to have 5 variants, and you can already see the profiles for all these 5 variants. We have the conical, we have the rounder, we have the thicker flat, we have the double border, and the plain straight. The thicker flat is what you're going to use if you want to add a solid halo to your gemstone. Here you are going to add the smaller gemstone on the top of the thicker flat bezel. Then we have the double border, a bit more aesthetic, and the plain straight when the gemstone is hanging from something. And obviously you can edit any variant you want. So this one is ready for rendering. For manufacturing, very probably your gemstone setter is going to ask you more height for the setting, and then he's going to cut and push the metal on the gemstone. So that all depends on your preferences. You can always change whatever you need to all the variants to create your own variants that are obviously hundreds and thousands of variants. And to all the variants, you can add the decoration of the 1000 grands. Here, sometimes you have the thicker and double variant that is bigger, a smaller and a bigger 1000 grands, depending the variant you're going to use. Okay, so these are all the bezels for faceted gemstones. So now the basket here, some collections have no variants. Here, the double prong basket, and the prongs are made using curves. So if I need to lower this, just go there and select this and readapt the curve. So this is for rendering and not for manufacturing. So you can very easily adapt the settings. Here we have the shape with the mirror. So what you need to do is a Shift S, cursor to selected, go to edit mode, make the 3D cursor the reference point, select everything with A by example, and scale. Then you can obviously adapt whatever you need to readapt the details according to the new size. Another example of how customize the belt. Here we have the profile. By example, I want to subdivide this because I want this to come out like that or go on the inside. So we can adapt the shape because that's exactly what I decided to do with this asset. The first reason I'm not using geometry nodes is that I wanted the asset to be compatible with as many versions of Blender as possible. Some people really like the version 2.8 by example of Blender. I really think that the customization and the ease of customization is a lot better using very obvious curves for the settings and a very efficient way of building the settings for all the shapes, for all the gemstones. Let's continue navigating this asset. Okay, so then we have the straight basket. This one is a lot more for tennis bracelets, by example, or necklaces or chains. And we have the variant with the double prong here. These ones are built using the solidify modifier. So you can change the height right here. So there are some variants to the building of the shapes. Most of the time, it's a curve with the profile. Here, if you go to edit mode, you have the shape here. So if you want to change the shape, maybe you want to open the double prong more, have more distance here, you need to go to edit mode and move this. But that's mostly for the double prongs and when they're straight. So it's a specific type of setting here using the solidify modifier and the shape in edit mode. Here you have the corner prong. So the corner shape is here. You can modify the shape here if you like. So obviously you can create whatever you need for your jewelry designs. Okay, and then we have the halos, two variants, the white plate with a lot of structure for your smaller gemstones around the central basket. The halos are mainly built for the basket setting. This version, that's where you have the exact contact. Obviously you can customize the halo, but I will do that another day, explaining how to change the gemstone sizes and the shape of your halo and the size of the halo. And then you have the tight row, a prong row with a much tighter distribution there. And here we have obviously the profiles, but I'll explain another day on how to customize the halo. All right, so that was the Asher shape cut. Now we have the baguettes. We have the rectangular straight baguettes, and the naming is very similar. Let's start with the prong variants. Prongs in the corners, the double prongs in the corners. Now this is the case setting with the double level with the basket. You can have the variant with the two sides, this one, or you can simply remove the prongs if you only need the basket for the baguette. Then you have the simple basket with just one casing and the prongs. So here you can add or remove the side prongs as you like. Maybe you need just these, maybe you need all the four of them, or maybe just top and bottom prongs. And you also have the white prongs on the sides and top and bottom, just like this. Okay, so you can configure your baguette setting. If you're making a row of baguettes in a ring, you can adapt all the prongs configurations exactly as needed for your designs. So it's always with a professional jeweler's logic for rendering and manufacturing. Then we have the solid simple basket. This is the most basic setting used in many designs with straight baguettes. And then we have the tapper baguette. The naming is similar throughout the entire asset, obviously, so people can very clearly understand the structure of the asset. Okay, so basket with prongs for the tapered baguette. Also have double prongs here and there, and you can remove, maybe on one side you need simple prongs and double prongs On the other side, here you can hide and show any distribution of prongs that you need. Okay, then we have the basket, also with side prongs, with the white version here. You can remove these, and we have the side round prongs here. As always, you've understood by now. Okay, the simple basket, also with the prongs, the white prongs on this side, or the round prong, also with the side prongs, round or wide, so you can make all the combinations that you need. Maybe you only want thicker prongs on each side like this, or maybe you want round prongs all around. Okay, so obviously there are many more existing configurations, and that's why if you want, you can edit directly the prong here as needed. You can change the thickness here, and you can readapt anything you need. The asset already has many combinations. Okay, and then we have the solid simple basket here for the taper prong. But obviously, each jewelry designer and jewelry manufacturer needs specific combinations. That's why the asset is fully customizable and built in a very specific way to facilitate the customization of all the settings. Allows us to create all the variations we need. It's very easy to adapt what we need. Maybe here I want a small groove on the side of the baguettes like this, and here we are. So obviously I'm showing very basic customizations, very quick customizations, but that already explains all the customization aspects of this asset and why it's going to be such an amazing tool for jewelry design and jewelry creation in Blender. Okay, now next shape, the cushion cut. The cabochon, double bezel with 1000 gras. You can remove it. Simple bezel right there and support for the gemstone. Okay, then the baskets, faceted versions, all the bezels. Always the 5 variants with the profiles here on the side. And with the 1000 gras has a variant for the thicker and double bezels. Obviously, we can change the configuration of the 1000 gras. Let me show you how it's done. So you have the sphere. You can change the size of the sphere. You need to go in the hierarchy right there of the 1000 gras. You'll find the sphere for this specific 1000 gras. Then you have the path. So you take the path, you go cursor to select it, you go to edit mode, use the 3D cursor as reference, and you can scale. Obviously, then you need to adapt the amount. So obviously you can say, oh, it's failing. No, I specifically decided to make it like this because some people want more distance, just adapt the distance here, but maybe you want a lot more spheres. You want a much tighter 1000 gras. So every time you design a 1000 gras, the client is going to say, I want less spheres. I want more spheres. So I made it like this, so you can very easily adapt the amount and distances for the 1000 gras. And something very important, this 1000 gras is built with, if you go here to the hierarchy, with vertices as instances for the spheres. It means there is no deformation on the 1000 gras or the gems in the halo because the distribution is made using vertices and instances on those vertices. There is no deformation on these shapes. It's a straight vertices distribution on the path. So obviously, if you go to the 1000 gras, you'll find the array and the curve to the path. That's clearly marked as the path down here, okay? So just know the structure of the asset. That's why I'm showing this today and explaining all these basics of the structure of the elements of the assets. You'll understand the logic pretty quickly because it was built with a very clear goal to make the asset very practical for creating jewelry and proper customization. The most straightforward library of gemstone settings in Blender. Obviously, you can customize. That's why I created this asset. Okay, so these are the bezel settings. Now the basket with rounder prongs. This is the profile. You can adapt it. Maybe you want some grooves there. There you go. And obviously you can add and remove all you need. You can import your own profile and set the profile here because this is a beveled curve. So this is the profile here. You can load the profile you want, import it, append it to your file, and use your custom profiles right there. Okay, then the double prong here with the double prong profile right there. And the straight basket for earrings, by example, we can have the hoops right there to hang this magnificent cushion straight basket. And then we have the halos. So remember, the halos are built for the basket setting here. This is the tight row version of the halo, and this is the wide version. Great. Next is the emerald setting, the cabochon settings, the simple and double with the 1000 gras. Then we have the bezels for the faceted gemstone, the faceted emerald, always the 5 variants with the 5 profiles. Take her flat by example. So maybe if you want more space for bigger gemstone on the side, you can customize this here. And maybe you want a division at the middle right there. You can subdivide because this type of curve is a poly curve instead of a Bezier curve. It's sharper, but it gives you a very specific control on the shape, okay? But if you want, you can select everything, curve, splint type, you go to Bezier. If you want to take advantage of the smoothness of the handles of the Bezier curve type in your designs. And here I can customize, and that's why I worked very specifically in placing the profiles in very clear spaces so you can have an easy access to them to make your customization. So when you're going to append this in another file, you'll be able to access the profiles very quickly and very easily. Here the basket, so the profile is right there with the corner prongs. Then you have the double prongs here and the straight version. So like I explained, these are built using the solidify modifier here. You can change the height. Here they're ready for rendering. Okay, and here they're ready for manufacturing. Maybe you want them a lot higher here. And we have the variants with the corner prongs. This one is built with the curve because they're using this corner profile, and it's better to keep the curve for customizing this prong. They're very simple constructions that you can very easily edit as needed. And then obviously we have the halos for the central basket here, tight row version, and then we have the wide plate version right here for the emerald cut. Now, next shape, the heart cabochon, simple and double with 1000 gras. So I've created simple materials for the cabochon gemstones. There's a camera set with the light. The HDR is obviously part of the asset. So that's to have a quick render preview of your settings. So all the bezels for the faceted heart with the 1000 gras. So maybe the 1000 gras you want it lower, so take the path and you can move the 1000 gras the height you want. If you want to change the size, cursor to selected, go to edit mode on the path, put the cursor as reference, and you can change the size here. Then you go to the modifiers on the 1000 gras, you add here, and actually most of the time it's going to complete without changing the distance, but if necessary, adapt the distance. Now obviously we have all the 5 profiles, bezel for the faceted gemstone. Here the distance is a bit higher because here at the tip it's touching the gemstone. Okay, then the baskets, the V front and the wide prongs at the back. Then you have the double prongs and you have the single prong variant right there. Then you have the double prong here. You can change the tip to the V front if you like. And then you have the straight version for a basket here with double prongs, or the wide prongs also here. And then you have the halos, and you always have the wide plate version and the tight row version. And obviously every setting has the mandatory cuts. Now the marquise, bezel for the marquise, simple and double with 1000 gras. You already know the story. Let's put the amethyst right there. So obviously if you combine this with my procedural gemstone collection, you can take this even further for your rendering. So that's the bezel, then the faceted bezels, always the 5 shapes. Now, the baskets, we have the side prongs. So the side prongs here, you can remove them. The V-tip here, and you can replace them with 4 prongs here, the prongs there, or the double prongs with position 1B. Then we have the straight basket. So you have the V-tip shape, the double prong here, and all the other position 1, 2, and 3 right there. Maybe you want the side prong there like this. So many variants. Then we have the halos. So let's bring back the basket, the tight row with special prongs at the tips, and the white plate there in marquise shape. Now the oval cut. Okay, let's start with the cabochon. So simple and double with the 1000 gras. So here, by example, the 1000 gras is on the inside border. Maybe you want it on the outside border. So let's go to the path, cursor to selected, go there and scale and move on the Z-axis, maybe more on the X-axis. Then go to the modifiers on the 1000 gras. You need more spheres right there. Okay. Then the faceted settings. Here we have some more options. Okay, so we have the basket, the position of the prongs there. You can make double prong here. I love this one. Then we have the 5 variants of the bezel as always. Here the thicker flat with the 1000 gras and obviously all the other options. Then here we have the peg head setting adapted to the oval. So we have variants with several positions. Here are the typical 4 prongs. Then you can use the side and top prongs here, straight. And maybe you want all the positions. And then we have the straight basket here. And then we have the Tiffany type V-shape prongs, the Gothic prongs on the oval version. You'll find those also on the round version, obviously. So this is great because you have the 6 prong setting, double prong, and the 4 prong setting, double prong right there. This is very pretty. So it's already adapted for the oval gemstone. Then obviously we have the halos with that, the tight row here with the cuts, obviously, and the white plate. And remember that one is adapted to the basket. Now the pier shape. So the cabochon right there with the 1000 gras. Simple and double. Then the faceted types, all the 5 bezel shapes right there. Let's remove the 1000 gras, obviously with the support for the gemstone right there. And all the 5 shapes we already know, with or without the 1000 gras. Now the basket with the white prongs and the V-tip prong. We can use double prongs instead of the white prongs. And we can use position of the side prongs there. If you want to remove the V-tip and only have simple prongs, here we are. Then you have the straight basket, also with the V-tip right there. All the position of the side prongs that you need here. So maybe you want this. Maybe you want that. You can make all the variants you need here with the straight basket. And then obviously the halo. So let's go to the normal basket. So here with the halo for the pier shape with the cuts. Okay, so obviously here the white plate with the cuts. Now here for the shape, I decided to make it rounder than the marquise by example. For ergonomic reasons, it's a design decision. Now the round diamond, 1 carat diamond. Okay, so we obviously have the cabochon, simple and double as always. So these are a bit different in their construction. If we go to edit mode, you'll find directly the profile there because we're using the screw modifier because it's round. One of the exceptions to the construction, the profile is directly the solid. That's why it says bezel and profile, double bezel and profile. Here you'll find the shape. If you want to edit this, you need to come here. Maybe you want it much lower like this. You need to come here directly on the shape of the solid right there in edit mode. Then for the faceted, here we have all the variants. Okay, the basket, the straight one, then the basket here with 4 prongs or 6 prongs included right there. Then you have the peg head, also 4 and 6, depending what you need. Very classical settings. Then you have all the 5 bezel types. So here the same, the bezel is directly its own profile because it's round, remember, okay? And you can remove the 1000 gras right there. Then we have the V style, Tiffany style right here. 6 prongs and 4 prongs for the round diamond. That's excellent for engagement rings by example. And obviously we have the halos, tight row right there, and white plate right here. Remember, it doesn't touch the other styles more than the normal basket here for the halo. Now we have the square, the princess cut. The cabochon looks flat, but let me show you that the cabochon is not flat at all. It's really pretty, in fact. The square cabochon gemstone. Okay, so simple and double with the 1000 gras as always. So here also the construction is a bit different. It's on the angle. So here, if you need to modify this one, select everything, rotate, let's say minus or plus 45 degrees. Make your modification here, then rotate on the Z-axis, again, 45 degrees or minus 45 degrees, whatever works. And here, if you want to keep the precision of the profile so that the construction is as simple as possible. Then we have the baskets and the bezel for the faceted version. So here, same for the construction. The profile is on the diagonal. So remember, rotate it 45 degrees, make the modification you like, and rotate back minus 45 degrees. And here you have your customization, okay? So here we have also all the other 5 shapes, exactly like all the other gemstones. Bigger flat stone, then the baskets. So the basket here with the corner prongs, I love this one. We've made this one quite often for engagement rings. So the variants here is the double prong instead of the corner prong, and the round prong here, the corners. Then you have the square basket, single prongs in the corner. And then obviously we have the halo for the square. This is the tight row here, the exact contact with the center setting. And here we have the white plate for the halo for the square princess cut. And last but not least, the trillion shape or triangular shape, especially around a round central diamond. The trillion shape looks amazing. The cabochon, obviously, with simple and double bezel, with the 1000 gras, then all the faceted types. So obviously all the 5 types of conical, the rounder, thicker flat, the double conical bezel, and the straight plain bezel right there. And all that with or without the 1000 gras. Then all the variant of baskets with the V-tips, 1, 2, and 3. They're linked copies, so we can have double prongs right there, and we can have the round single prongs there. I prefer the double prong or the V-tip on bigger stones, honestly. Then the straight basket, also with the double and single and V-tip variants. Straight for chains or charms, pendants, earrings. You can hang this right there with hoops. Okay, and then obviously the halo for the trillion. This is the tight row version and the white plate version for the trillion gemstone setting. This completes the overview and quick explanation of this 3D jewelry gemstones setting assets. So as you've seen, we have the 12 major gemstone cuts and shapes with all the bezels and baskets and halo settings. Already many combinations available in the asset. I will make more complete tutorials. As always, I hope you enjoyed a lot this tutorial using this asset. As always, be nice with the planet. Take care. See you soon.